The Washington Post and the AP, as I mentioned, published leaked accounts of President Trump's tough phone calls with the leaders of Australia and Mexico, triggering a wave of coverage and criticism.
These leaks are astounding. A president threatening to march troops into Mexico.
Believe me, when you hear about the tough phone calls I'm having, don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. They're tough. We have to be tough. It's time we're going to be a little tough, folks. We're taken advantage of by every nation in the world virtually.
Joining us now to analyze the coverage, Aaron McPike, political commentator and former reporter for Real Clear Politics. Kelly Riddell, Washington Times deputy opinion editor, and Marie Harf, former spokeswoman for the State Department and CIA in the Obama administration and a brand new Fox News contributor. Aaron McPike, and you have a new job, I should have mentioned, at Independent Journal Review. What do you make of the leaking of these phone calls? I've never seen anything like it.
Well, I think it's wrong to lump these two different phone calls into the same category because we don't know where the leaks came from.
True.
People are assuming that they came from the White House. I think particularly with respect to Mexico, I think if you read that Associated Press story very closely, it could be that that leak came directly from Mexico.
Is there a danger when you take someone's account of a call or even a transcript that's a partial transcript that you're not getting the full story, you're certainly not getting the tone of a talk between two leaders?
Yes, and this is where this AP story in particular went wrong. It was a partial transcript, and then the reporter took their own confirmation bias. They want to put out bad news against Donald Trump, spun it, and then, you know, in the AP story, it never said that Donald Trump was going to send troops down to Mexico to get those bad hombres. It said bad hombres, it threatened troops, and then it was allowed everyone in the liberal media to go on online social media, and it exploded. Donald Trump sending troops down to Mexico. You know, you had Jon Favreau, who was a speechwriter for Obama, who, you know, famously laughed with Charlie Rose about the line that if you like your health care, you can keep it. Right on Twitter, oh my gosh, we're going to war with Mexico now. I mean, this is the
some of that was tongue-in-cheek, wasn't it?
It's all fake news, though, and it perpetuates the narrative that the press wants to put out there.
Well, let me get Marie in here because you've actually dealt with reporters, that is an administration spokeswoman. In this kind of context, wouldn't only very senior officials at the White House and perhaps the State Department have access to information about these calls?
Absolutely. I think only very, very small number of officials at the White House. I would doubt that anyone in the Trump State Department probably had access to these.
Why so?
Because they don't seem to be relying on them for policy guidance on things like the refugee ban. Rex Tillerson hadn't even been confirmed yet when they did these calls, so I would be shocked if they even shared these with the State Department.
Would you agree with
particularly with Obama holdovers, as Kellyanne mentioned in your interview.
But would you agree that somebody was trying to embarrass or damage President Trump?
I don't know what the reason was, right? It's hard to get in people's heads. I think some people might have been concerned about the tone and wanted to send a message that this is not how you do foreign policy, this is irresponsible, it's not how you behave as president. And we know the Trump administration, when they were a campaign, said that they messaged to him through the media. So who knows why they did this?
Well, the coverage has certainly been harsh, particularly about the call with the Prime Minister of Australia, because Trump was reported to have said this was his worst call of the day, even though he talked to Putin that day, and ended the call after 25 minutes. It was supposed to go an hour. Big disagreement over an Obama administration deal to send a certain number of refugees from Australia to the U.S. So the coverage certainly was not favorable on that.
No, I think it hasn't been favorable on either one of those stories. But again, we're trying to get to the bottom of where the leaks came from. And
well, we can't. It's somewhat speculation because we don't know who the anonymous sources are.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
But speaking of coverage, you know, it just happened over the weekend that a federal judge in Seattle temporarily blocked the president's order on limited travel ban for refugees in those 7 countries. And Trump very strongly went after this judge, called him a so-called judge. That has gotten a lot of media coverage and criticism.
Yeah, and you know, it's a Twitter tweet. That's all it is. It's not attacking.
Well, all of presidential tweets get lots of attention.
Let's put this in context. You had Obama in 2010 go after the Supreme Court in a State of the Union speech after the Citizens United case. You had, leading up to the Obamacare ruling in 2012, a very organized political campaign starting at the White House, targeting John Roberts, and basically saying if you don't rule for Obamacare here, you're politicizing the court system. So this is not a new thing for presidents to go after court rulings that they don't quite agree with or try to manipulate court rulings in their favor.
Brief comment, but of course Trump uses colorful language. We know that about him.
Right, but there's a difference between attacking Personally, a federal judge. Trump did it on the campaign when he attacked the Mexican-American judge. He did it now, and it's calling into legitimacy the judiciary. It's not just saying...
Oh, doesn't that go a little far? I mean, he's taking a shot at a guy whose ruling he disagreed with.
What's his so-called mean?
All right, well...
That is
we'll let the viewers decide, because I've got to get a break.